We are in for a treat today, ladies and gentlemen, because we have another fantastic Batman movie to talk about. Today is a good day. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Animation Station. Your number one station at the end of the animation. Welcome back to DC Live. Welcome to Batman Year One, the first of, I believe, two of the Frank Miller Batman comics that ended up getting adapted into a full movie. Now, there's a lot to talk about with this one, so let's just dive right in, shall we? First of all, I'll talk about my overall thoughts about the movie, and then I'll go more in depth. My overall thoughts on the movie: this movie's freaking fantastic. Just wow. I can see why so many people call it one of the best Batman stories. Even as someone who hasn't read the comic book, I really enjoyed this one. As a Batman fan, as an animation fan, and overall as a fan of this DC animated universe pantheon that I've seen so far, so far, Crisis on Two Earths is the only one I don't like. The rest of them have been either decent or spectacular. This one isn't quite spectacular, but it is outstanding. It is a great Batman movie. But it has one little catch. And that is that Batman is very much the side focus of this one. Now, I know you're going to be like, wait, a Batman movie that doesn't focus on Batman? Pfft, what the heck is this? But this one actually focuses more on Commissioner Gordon. Well, actually, Lieutenant Gordon on his way up to becoming commissioner by taking down all these corrupt cops. And his motivations and why he does what he does. It is a really compelling story. But since Batman is very much a side plot of this, and it plays out like a drama rather than an action-packed, fist-fight fest, it still somehow is incredibly compelling, very well written, and the voice acting here is great too. With the exception of one, and I do have a little minor complaint here, I feel like this is one of those Batman movies that they should have gotten Kevin Conroy to voice, because the voice they got to play Batman in this one is just okay. I'll get a bit more into him later, but I don't know, it just doesn't quite fit with the movie's whole aesthetic and tone. The voice acting here is still very good, but I don't know, something about Batman's voice in this one kind of off-puts me a little bit, but I don't know. So let's go ahead and just dive headfirst into the negatives first, then I'll go into the voice cast, pros, and some of my favorite parts of the movie. So, yeah, we're going full analysis mode with this one, so sit back, grab a drink, grab some popcorn, let's begin. So let's start with the gripes of the movie, and like I said, this is more of a Jim Gordon story rather than a Batman story. And I know, that sounds really dumb considering the fact that Batman is on the freaking title, but when you actually watch it, it makes a whole lot of sense, because this is about Batman, a very inexperienced young Batman trying to find his way, which kind of also served as inspiration for both the Christopher Nolan trilogy and the 2022 Batman movie in a way. Kind of. It's a bit hard to really articulate why that inspired it, but sorry, I'm a bit scatterbrained. But this Batman is not the Batman we really know, because this one is definitely very much inexperienced. There is multiple parts in this movie where Batman does show up, but he's not like the super skilled Cape Crusader we're used to. This is Batman right when he is actually getting his start. He doesn't have the graceful landing yet. He doesn't know how to avoid getting shot by bullets. And he doesn't have all the tricks and gadgets that he has now. In fact, throughout most of this movie, he only has one little dart gun that knocks people unconscious, and some smoke bombs. That's about it. Outside of that, he has to rely on his own skills and wits. And it's both interesting, but also kind of handicaps him from being able to, really go all out. But at the same time, it makes sense for the story, because this is very much, again, a Batman that's not the Batman we know. It's a very young, inexperienced Batman who's still trying to figure out how all this even is supposed to work in the first place. And like I said, this one, Batman is very much the B plot of this one, because the A plot, the actual main plot of the movie, despite what the title may tell you, is that this one actually focuses on Jim Gordon as he moves into Gotham with his pregnant wife and apparently his pregnant daughter too, I think. I don't know. They don't really explain that part. But yeah, he moves into Gotham with his pregnant wife, and it looks like at first he's just there to help out the police force, but then it turns out he's actually there to take down corrupt cops, which very much fits Gordon's character. And Gordon in this is fantastic, and his full transformation from lieutenant to commissioner throughout the entire movie is very much believable. And the movie really puts a lot of focus on him specifically and what he does throughout the movie. Like how he takes down these cops, how he bides his time until he finally acts, or how he thinks of Batman and how that grows and changes the more he sees him and the more he thinks about him. And another thing I really like about this movie is that, in a way, in this universe, in this timeline, Commissioner Gordon finds out that Bruce Wayne is in fact Batman. I kind of like that, because in most of the movies it's left ambiguous whether or not he actually knows, but I do like in this one that he does pretty much know, but it's not outright told to us. Like, he has his suspicions, and he has this partner that he's working with on this case, which he later ends up banging, by the way, in one of his one and only sinful acts in the actual movie that makes him a bit of a criminal, but at the same time, given the circumstance of how it actually happened, yeah, it makes a lot more sense when you actually watch it, trust me. But it's a really believable transition, and he really tries his best to take down all these corrupt cops and, try to clean up the streets of Gotham and do his part to help. And he is a very fascinating character throughout the entire movie, and despite Batman not being on screen for most of it, most of this movie, Batman and Gordon are separated from one another. Somehow, when I'm still watching the Gordon parts, I'm not bored. I'm not bored, I'm not rolling my eyes thinking, where's Batman? Where's he going to show up? But I'm really invested in his story and how he grows and develops as a character as he tries to take down these corrupt cops and becomes the Commissioner Gordon that we're all used to. Not to mention a little thing I'll talk more about in the voice acting. He's voiced by Bryan freaking Cranston. It's Bryan Cranston. Dude is a legend. He does an amazing job in this movie and seriously fits his character extremely well. Seriously, Bryan Cranston does such an amazing job. I'll praise more about him later. And my only other real gripe with the movie is, in my opinion, it's too short. It's only exactly an hour long. If you take out the credits, it's literally just barely an hour long. And it flies by so quick, and it's so fast-paced despite being, at the same time, a slow burn drama. But it feels too short. I feel like we could have easily stretched this out to an hour, 10 minutes, maybe an hour 15, just to get a little extra more context in there. But that's really a minor gripe. Outside of that, it is really well done. Okay, that's all my negatives with this movie. It's a double-edged sword that it focuses more on Gordon rather than Batman. And this Batman can't really go all out like Batman that we're used to because he's inexperienced, which is both a pro and a con, because it makes him more compelling, but at the same time it also kind of handicaps him in situations where you would normally expect him to get out of pretty easily, like a shootout with the SWAT team, for one. And the runtime is way too short. I feel like we could have easily stretched this out to an hour 15, maybe an hour 20, and it could have really benefited from a few extra minutes to really add more context into the story on both sides. And one more other negative I'm going to say in here is that they do throw in Selina Kyle as Catwoman in here, and she overall feels pretty pointless in the overall story. Yes, it's cool to see how she transitions from This is literally impossible for me to say without trying to dance around it, so apologies. I'm about to talk about something a bit adult here, and YouTube, please don't flag me. Selena Kyle in this universe starts out as a prostitute. Like, no, it's not even danced around. There's no sugarcoating it. She's a straight-up prostitute. She dresses like one, she acts like one, she talks like one, with the exception of, actually having some fighting capabilities. But, I mean, yeah, she's a prostitute. There's literally no dancing around that fact. So, sorry, YouTube, I know that's a bit adult to say on a mostly family-friendly channel, but this movie's PG-13. A pretty hard PG-13 at that, because it does have a pretty decent amount of mature and adult content, so sorry, please don't flag me. But yeah, it's interesting to see how Selena Kyle goes from that to Catwoman, to a vigilante, to a burglar, trying to, get the news on her, but at the same time, trying to also provide for herself while also providing for the woman that she's staying with. Yeah, there's a little bit of an implication to an LGBTQ relationship, but it's not outright said or stated. So it's actually, it's not really explained. So, yeah, she's just trying to provide for herself and this woman that she's staying with, as well as, well, trying to find a purpose in her life because she hates what she's doing. Which leads to a scene where she comes up to that same guy that she defended in an earlier scene against Bruce Wayne and punches him right in the face with little to no actual hesitation. And from there, she moves out of that prostitute district and she starts becoming a vigilante, a burglar, and becomes Catwoman. But I feel like they could have easily cut that out because it feels like it's overall pointless in the story and it feels a bit like meaningless filler. So, yeah, that's all my gripes. That's all my negatives. That's all that. So, yep, let's go ahead and move on to the voice cast. It's pretty good here, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's start with the one I already mentioned, Bryan Cranston as Jim Gordon. He is the star of the show, he's the best part of the movie, and his performance of this character is spectacular. Yes, it seems a bit underplayed at first because he's so soft-spoken and not, like, screamy, shouty like he is in something like Breaking Bad, but for the Gordon in this movie and his character, his voice fit perfectly. Not to mention, if you didn't look it up on IMDb, it was more than likely not even that obvious to figure out it was Bryan Cranston. So, yeah, he does a great job in the movie. He also has some great monologues to himself, because he also serves as a narrator, in a way, though it is kind of just in his scenes and what's going through his head, rather than actually explaining the whole movie. Which is a good thing, because if he just explained the whole movie, it'd be a bit cliche, but it's the monologues that really make his performance so great. Then we get to the one that I'm very iffy about, and that is Ben McKenzie as Bruce Wayne in Batman. Now, as Bruce Wayne, he's fine. He's a decent, fine Bruce Wayne. And he does a good job selling the character, but I don't know, something about him just feels off, and when he gets around to actually voicing Batman, with the exception of one really good interrogation scene where he rat poisons someone, yeah, like I said, it's not the Batman we're used to, I didn't really buy him as Batman. His voice just didn't match. Like, I don't know if that was just me, but I don't know, something about that is just a little iffy. It's a really good performance, but it just feels like it doesn't belong in a Batman movie, and he shouldn't really be voicing this character, because it just sounds so off. I don't know, it just sounds off. Then there's Eliza Dushku, I'm apologizing very much for mispronouncing that, if I did, as the voice of Selena Kyle and Catwoman. She's fine. Again, she doesn't really get to do a whole lot, so a bit inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Then there's John Polito, rest in peace, as Commissioner Loeb. He's pretty good. Very much a background villain, though. Then there's Alex Rocco as Falcone. He's actually really good in here. I especially really like the dinner scene where he's with all these other mob bosses, and he's trying to get them to calm down about the Batman and just focus on, what they're doing, continue what they're doing. But when Batman does come into play, he doesn't hesitate to try and take him down. Like, he's a mob boss through and through, and a really darn good one at that. So, yeah, Alex Rocco as Falcone is great. Then there's Katie Sackhoff as Detective Essen, aka the person that ends up being involved in an affair with Gordon. She's pretty good. She's very much a side character, though, and only kind of serves to heighten the tension between Jim and his wife, but it's really about it. And she also does kind of figure out that Bruce Wayne's Batman, and I do like her back and forth with Gordon, like when they're in the car or talking or, trying to put the pieces of this puzzle together and take down these corrupt cops and Batman at the same time. So it's very interesting. Then there's Sarah Ballantine as Skeever's attorney. She's fine. She barely does anything. Jeff Bennett is a really good Alfred, despite not having many scenes. Like, he's really good in this. Then there's Steve Bloom as the voice of Stan. Yep, Steve Bloom is back again. And his fourth appearance in the DC Animated Universe film? He's okay. He doesn't really get to do a whole lot. Then there's Roark Critchlow as Hare Krishna. It's fine. Then Grey Griffin. Yep, Grey Griffin is back again for, I believe, her second DCAU appearance as Barbara Gordon, the voice. And no, not as in the daughter Barbara Gordon, the wife Barbara Gordon, the pregnant wife Barbara Gordon. And she's pretty good in here. I mean, it is Grey Griffin, but at the same time, it's a bit of a basic character, so it kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of... this is hard to explain. She's very much a side character, but the scenes that she does get, she's really good. And I especially really like how, despite what happens between Essen and her husband, she still tries to, make things work because they have a child. So, yeah, Barbara Gordon in this movie is really good, and Greg Griffin did a great job with the voice acting. Then, very much in a side role, is Robin Atkins Downs as Harvey Dent. No, not Two-Face, Harvey Dent. And he's okay. He only has like one or two scenes and he's gone. And he's also one of the first people in the actual police force to work with Batman, because there's one scene where he and Jim are talking in their office and he gives them an alibi. And Jim leaves, and then he turns his back. He's like, finally, I thought he'd never leave. And at first I thought, oh no, is he corrupt too? And then I realized he was just waiting for him to leave so he could talk to Batman. So, yeah, pretty interesting that Dent is the first one in this universe to actually work with Batman, despite the rest of the police hating him. Like, that's very interesting. Keith Ferguson does a good job as Jefferson Skeevers. Michael Goff is back again as a driver. He's okay. Danny Jacobs as Flass's attorney is okay. He only gets like one line, but it's fine. Nick Jameson as Merkel's pretty good. Liliana Muni as Holly's pretty good. And then there's Falcone's wife, who also only has a few lines, voiced by Pat Musick. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. She's okay. So, yeah, voice acting here is pretty great, but it's definitely Bryan Cranston's Jim Gordon that's the star of the show. And speaking of the star of the show, let's talk about that animation. As you guys may or may not know from my Batman Gotham Knight review, I did not like that a Batman movie tried to do an anime style. I thought it didn't fit, I thought it didn't work, and at some times, especially the first story, the animation was outright bad. But they decided to give it a second attempt here, and it's actually really good. Like, this is actual good anime-inspired animation style. I really like this style. It's dark, it's gritty, it fits the tone, and it's really well animated. And there's only one scene of CGI. One scene in a car chase. That's it. Outside of that, there is no CGI in this movie. Seriously, thank you. I cannot thank the movie enough for that. And then there's like shadows and textures and detail. Like, even the background has a lot of detail put into it. So yeah, the animators definitely didn't slack here. They did a great job. Speaking of great job, let's talk about the writing. The writing here is also surprisingly great too, where we have Bob Kane, yes, one of Batman's creators, Tab Murphy, and the comic author himself, Frank Miller, all working together to make the script. And the script here is really good. Like, really, really good. It's a bit hard to explain. Let me see if I can try to find some quotes to maybe show you. This first one. This first one I absolutely need to talk about. This is one of my favorite lines in the movie. It's when Batman crashes the mob boss's little dinner party, and he says this. Ladies, gentlemen, you've eaten well. You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe. Like, that's one of those moments where no one in the room is not scared out of their mind. Showing that, yeah, Batman did his job. And not only that, it's one of the most BA lines Batman has ever said. So, yeah, that is such a cool line. I love that line. Oh yeah, and this one I gotta talk about too. This is literally Bruce Wayne's first lines in the movie after he gets back from his 12-year absence. Gotham City. Clean shafts of concrete and snowy rooftops. The work of men who died generations ago. From here it looks like an achievement. From here you can't see the enemy. 12 years and the ache is still fresh, like a raw, angry nerve. But this isn't about healing. I'm not looking for closure. Like, the character dialogue in this movie is so freaking good. Like, it's so freaking good. Oh, this one I have to talk about. This one I absolutely need to talk about. This is the one where he's trying to figure out how to instill fear in the criminals. Because he's not Batman yet at this point. He's still trying to figure out this whole vigilante thing. And he's sitting in his office. He got shot in the shoulder earlier by a cop, so he had like blood dripping all the way down the hallway, and he still has blood dripping all down his side, but he doesn't call Alfred. He has the bell right there, but he doesn't call him. Instead, he talks to this little head statue of his late father, trying to figure out how to do this, how to instill fear in these criminals, and just the imagery alone is gothic. Like, it's so freaking good. I need to say this line. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to wait, but I have to know. How, Father? How do I do it? What do I use to make them afraid? If I ring the bell, Alfred will come. Another of your gifts, Father. But I'd rather die than wait another hour. I've already waited 18 years. 18 years since all sense left my life. And then a bat crashes through his window and lands on top of the little head statue. And it's literally like his father's talking to him from beyond the grave, and that's how he gets the idea of becoming Batman. Like, it's gothic, and it's such a fantastic, awesome scene. Like, seriously, I gotta talk about that one. Let me see, where's another really good quote? I'm sorry for doing so many quotes, but this movie's just so well written. Darn it, looks like we're out. Yeah, that's it. Okay, we're out of quotes, but seriously, the writing in this movie is so good. It's sharp, it's adult, it's mature, and the funny moments that are in this movie, little levity bits of humor here and there, aren't like cheap throwaway jokes. They're not lowbrow humor, they're not fart jokes, they're nothing like that. But more visual jokes. Like, for example, there's one scene, where is it? This one. It's when Carmine Falcone's looking for his car and he comes across the driver. Well, actually, the driver comes across the car missing in the parking lot. He rushes over to Falcone and he says, "Mr. Falcone, your Rolls, it's gone." And then Falcone pretty much immediately knows what happened. He took it, said it's in the river, thinks he's a damn Robin Hood. He dies. Like, it's that dark humor that Batman does so well in his best movies. But yeah, it's really good here. Not to mention the story itself is also fantastic. Like, yes, I do complain about it focusing more on Gordon rather than Batman, but still a really well done story, and I'm invested all the way through. I'm not bored, I'm not rolling my eyes, I'm not waiting for Batman to come back on screen. No, I'm completely invested in this story, despite the fact that Batman is very much the B plot in this. And you know that you are a really darn good writer if you're actually able to get me invested in someone other than Batman himself. And with Gordon, I was entirely invested in his story and how his character grows and develops throughout the movie. And how that one sin that he does commit haunts him for the rest of his life. Like, it's dark, mature, adult writing, and it is fantastic all the way through. And according to the trivia here, let me pull up the trivia. I learned this up when I was actually looking up this IMDb page. Batman Year... Oh, wait, no, not that one. Where is it? Ah, shoot. Okay, now I can't find it. Apparently Batman Year 1 was a huge inspiration for Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. There is a lot of parallels when you watch them both back-to-back, but whereas Batman Begins was frustratingly flawed beyond belief, this one is very well crafted, very well written, and just really well put together. Like, it is such a fantastic Batman movie. So, yeah. Okay, I've talked about the pros, I've talked about the cons, I've talked about the animation, the voice acting, I've talked about the story, the writing, quoted some of my favorite parts. Let's get to the final verdict. I love this movie as a Batman fan, and just as a fan of this animated universe in general. It's very well crafted, the writing is adult and mature, the story is fantastic, the voice acting is really good, but it just has a few nagging things that keep me from being able to call it perfect or one of the greatest Batman movies ever made. Like, it's not Mask of the Phantasm, no. It's not Mask of the Phantasm, and I don't think it's as great as Under the Red Hood either, but it's definitely in at least the top 5, if not the top 10, but it is a fantastic Batman movie, and while it definitely focuses more on Gordon rather than Batman, it's still fantastic and incredibly engaging throughout. I was not bored a single minute, and I had a great time with this movie. If you don't mind a little adult grittiness in your Batman movie, you're going to have a great time with this one. Final verdict for Batman Year 1 is going to be an easy high 9 out of 10. This is a fantastic Batman movie, and despite the little gripes I have with it, it is absolutely worth seeing. Highly recommended, and it's a must-see for any Batman fan. Period. Well, I think I've rambled on long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Animation Station. And stay tuned, it's only the 14th, so we still have like 3 more days to go before we switch gears to another comic book franchise. You guys might know which one if you know what's coming up right around the corner in a few weeks. So, yep, that's going to be it for this review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please feel free to leave your thoughts and opinions on today's review in the comments down below. And if there's anything else I can do to improve my video quality or my actual reviewing style, I'm all ears, and I'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts. And I'll see you guys next time, because, like I said, you have another Batman movie to look forward to today, because I'm going to go ahead and knock out the final of the Batman Animated Series / New Batman Adventures movies. So, I'll see you next time for Batman Mystery of the Batwoman.